Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Guys podcast, and we're watching the Kamala Harris implosion begin. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling. Maybe on the Rizzler.
Yeah. Well, you got
a
clean
haircut,
pretty.
I'm a shave.
You know, it happens. Yeah. So proud of you.
I just introduced Josh to the Rizzler for the first time. I was doing the Rizzler moves, and he was completely perplexed. I'm hoping that
I just thought you were like showing off your
jawline
face, right? And he's like, "Do you know who the Rizzler is?" I thought it was like something from Batman.
No,
right? I'm like, "Who's this?"
I'll send you stuff to watch. The Costco guys, Big Justice, the Rizzler. They bring the boom. Boom or doom, and that's where we kind of are right now with the country. Boom or doom. Do you want Donald Trump? Boom. Donald Trump is a double chunk chocolate cookie. If you watch the Costco guys, Kamala Harris, she is a doom. She's broccoli. Nothing wrong with broccoli, but she's broccoli.
No. Yeah.
Collapse.
Thinks it tastes like soap. You know,
collapse is happening in real time. Let's get to some of the polls, I guess. We can start with the polls.
Well, the collapse happened when she had to take 2 days off, right? Like if Trump had taken 2 days off the other day, they would have said like it's over for him. Yeah. Right? They would have said it's over. The moment she took 2 days off, man, that blew my mind. That was the start, really, right?
And took 2 days off for that town hall, which was abysmal.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah.
Abysmal. Did we play any clips from that town hall? All these days are starting.
There were all those word salads, right? I mean, it was just like, I felt almost bad for her because she doesn't even know what to reach to. I mean, if that took 2 days worth of preparation, woo, I feel bad for her campaign manager. Could you imagine being the person trying to coach her on this? Because it was just gobbledygook, blah, 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 whatever. We've just got to get over what was, so what can be the goodness of what was.
Unburdened by what has been.
And
I have
really transparent.
I'm gonna down this one.
Transparent,
this video.
Right? I mean, it's just, and people can see it, right? This is why they didn't trot her out much sooner.
Yeah,
this is why she did 3 interviews. This is why they don't let. It was easier to let Joe Biden go out undrugged, unfettered, and have him talk than Kamala to go out.
He's doing that today. Joe Biden's doing that today.
Really?
He's out apologizing to Native Americans. I'm part Native American. Interesting. Let me hear what he's got to say. He's apologizing for U.S. government policies in the past that basically put Native American children into boarding schools without their parents' permission. Not a good policy. Weird that that's how he's spending his lame duck final 2 months as his presidency. But obviously, this is something important to him. Obviously, this is something he's thought about. Has put together some coherent sentences. Let's tune in and see what it was like today.
And to the Gila Indian River community, the Gila, nothing wrong with me.
Nothing wrong with me. Like, who's he talking to there? Hey, dude, and remember, this was polling better than Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
This was polling better. I kind of feel bad for him.
Kamala Harris was asked a question, the same question she's been asked by Trump and by lots of people. You have all these plans. Why haven't you done them in the 3.5 years you were in office? And her word salad answer was S tier for her word salad answers.
Right.
Like top of the pile in terms of word salads that she's given. Here we go.
Voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
There's lots of things we have to do that have not been done. And I'm pointing out things that have to be done that weren't done, but still have to be done.
Do you remember that one person in class in high school? They get up to the podium. They're supposed to give their speech. And what comes out of them is not what's on the paper.
Yeah.
and then the panic hits, and there's just nothing there, and you're just watching the total meltdown, right? And then sometimes those people would cry, and like it goes horribly wrong. But that's what we got here. This is like high school level communication with Anderson Cooper, who should have kept pressing.
That's not a gotcha question.
Utter.
It's not a gotcha question. It's not something that she can say, I wasn't expecting that. She's been asked it constantly. I want to play a clip of Scott Jennings on CNN, which, by the way, I don't know if you've been watching any CNN with Scott Jennings. Every election cycle, they have their token Republican, token Trump supporter.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, he's the best one they've had in 3 election cycles. He's witty. He's funny. He hammers the messages home. They hate him for it. So I'll play that in a second. But what's very obvious from all these questions is she's asked a question and 2 things happen. And we mentioned this when she was doing the interview with Bret Baier. There's a look of terror in her eyes. And then she's flipping through the Rolodex in her brain, trying to figure out, what do I say? Pulling the files, like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I say? And that all happens in a split second. But if you watch enough, you've done things like this, you know that feeling, you know what you're seeing. This would be so much easier for her if she could just tell the country what she actually believes, what she actually wants to do. She can't do that because her actual beliefs and her actual policy proposals are unelectable, just like they were unelectable in the 2020 Democrat primary. They're unelectable. So she can't say what she actually believes. So right off the bat, that's hard, right? To go out there and run on something you don't believe. It's hard. So then you're like, okay, well, she's saying, what am I going to believe? What am I going to tell the American people? My interpretation is she's not allowed to figure out what that is. That she has her team and she has her consultants and she has her staffers, and they are literally trying to win an election by committee. And there's a certain element of that has to happen anyway. You need staffers, but every policy position can't be focus group tested, can't be voted on, can't be debated at length. Sometimes you just have to say, oh, well, this is what I believe, right? And it is very obvious that this is what's happening because she can't answer the simplest questions. She can't answer them. Not because she's incapable of telling people what she really thinks. She's been told, don't tell people what you really think. And either she can't remember the talking points she was given, or they haven't come up with the real talking points. And they'll say, oh, to borrow that Bill O'Reilly term, F it, we'll do it live, right? It's one of those 2 things.
Watching, if she was to actually say what she means, you would be shocked that she's a true red communist.
Yeah.
Because the things that she wants are so anti-American, so anti-America, that it befuddles me why they would pick her. Because they know they'd have to trot that out.
The voters didn't pick her. She wasn't elected in a Democrat primary, right? So they're trying to run this complicated scientific experiment. Can we get someone elected who the American people don't like? She was the most unpopular vice president in American history before they rolled out this media makeover. American people hated her, never voted for her. She dropped out before Iowa in 2020, right? She hasn't told people what she actually believes in, what she wants to do. And the few policies she has rolled out were plagiarized from Trump, right?
Almost
running this experiment. Can we force through someone that people didn't vote for and doesn't even have to tell people what she believes? Will people still vote for her anyway? And damn it, Josh, it's still close. I think Trump's winning this, but it's still close.
Especially in some of the big battleground states, right, where it's still neck and neck. It's a good place to be, but it's still, like you said, close.
I want to play.
It's amazing that she got this far, though. Just what you said. She's gotten this far from being an empty shell of a candidate. There's nothing there of substance, right? It's impressive. I gotta hope she doesn't win, man.
From in the scheme of like, am I surprised she was able to get this far with just bullshitting her way through? Yeah. Fake it. She is fake it till you make it, right? And she is one step away. She was already 1 heartbeat away. Now she's 11 days away from receiving the most powerful, coveted job in the world and she's literally fake it till you make it. I want to play this clip of Scott Jennings.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen him. Lots of people have seen him on CNN. Here's him talking about Kamala's word salads.
Do you see something in that?
I mean, is that profound because it rhymes? I mean, look, she doesn't have to be...
I do think it was very well said.
She doesn't have to be flawless, but she has to give you something. I mean, she's like a true double threat. You know, she's terrible on her feet when she gets unexpected questions, and simultaneously, she can't even answer the expected questions. It's nothing, nothing, nothing. You'd think she'd be prepared to do this by now. You know, what's a mistake you've made? Nothing. What's a weakness you have? Nothing. What's the first law you want to pass? Nothing. What's a policy difference between you and Joe Biden? Nothing. Over and over and over. Empty, empty, empty. If she were an animal, she'd be a duck-billed platitude.
But look,
it's a total word salad.
Wow.
He's great.
Wow. He's funny.
Yeah.
He lit them up. Like, they all kind of like, oh, they laughed. Even Axelrod's like,
he always ends with like a funny joke.
Yeah.
Duck-billed platitude. He always ends with something like that.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
But he's right. There's nothing here. There's nothing there. There's nothing here. I'm no different than this. And if you look at the Trump message right now, he's gone all America, right? He's not even talking about his opponent. All Kamala and the left is doing is talking about their opponent. No substance, just attacking the opposition for being a Nazi.
Yeah.
Which is blowing my mind. This thing's still close, and they're still running off the old trope of he's a Nazi. I mean, Hillary was out there saying something about Madison and Fascist Square Garden.
Play that.
Dude, it was crazy. What was that?
I've got that. Trump has, it's not his closing argument. I suspect his closing final rally will be in Michigan again, midnight before Election Day. It's what he did in 2016. It's what he did in 2020. He's a creature of habit. But this coming week, he's having a big blowout rally in Madison Square Garden. And the left is trying to smear him for that because in the 1940s, American Nazis went to a different building called at that time Madison Square Garden and held a rally. So because they did that at a different building called Madison Square Garden, him going to this building called Madison Square Garden automatically means he's trying to copy what the Nazis did. American Nazis did in the 40s. Here we go.
Another thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it. Now,
what the hell was that?
So people know where Madison Square Garden is. If you've been to New York, it's right above Penn Station, right? It's huge, right? It's what, like 34th Street, right? Pretty much downtown. It's huge. It's a huge arena, and it's a huge pop culture kind of staple. Like if you remember watching the old 1990s, early 2000s Godzilla movie, where Godzilla lays all the eggs in Madison Square Garden, it's a huge pop culture thing. It's iconic, but it's not the only building that's ever been called Madison Square Garden. The Madison Square Garden in New York City now is actually MSG 4. There were three others in New York City.
Oh.
This was MSG, let me put it on the screen, MSG 3. Madison Square Garden number 3.
Wow.
Built in 1925, I want to say. They shut it down in the 60s to make way for the new Madison Square Garden, which is not at the same location. Not at the same location whatsoever. That was at 50th Street. The new one's at 34th Street, right? So that's Madison Square Garden 3. There's Madison Square Garden 2. There was a second one. A second Madison Square Garden built in 1890. I mean, it's crazy. And then there was a first one built. When was the first one built? I don't want to get fact checked.
That is really old.
1879. So
Oh.
they build these things, and they're all in different locations. And it's just like the name, like, oh, we'll call it Madison Square Garden. That's what it's always been called. Nazis never rallied in MSG at 34th Street, right?
Yeah.
It never happened, right? It never happened.
What if I owned MSG, I'd be giving her a call that she needs to recant, because there's no way I would want Hillary Clinton saying that Madison Square Gardens has hosted a Nazi rally.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. If you own MSG,
yeah.
So she didn't get the building right. And she took every opportunity she could to try to associate that 39 rally with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
That's the biggest stretch.
It's a name that's basically been used to describe a bunch of different places in New York City over almost 200 years, 150 years, to describe where people would gather for events. It's not the same place at all, whatsoever. And it's just, I mean, you would think Hillary Clinton would know better than to do the basket of deplorables. But now we've been upgraded from the basket of deplorables. Now we're all Nazis.
I know.
We're all Nazis.
What an evolution on her part. I mean, we went from being just kind of people she didn't like to full out fascists that, need to be removed.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of really crazy rhetoric this weekend, or at least this week, with the whole Nazi trope lines and trying to kill, Nazis should be killed. Obama was out at a bunch of rallies trying to liken Trump to Nazis. Remember when Kamala was trotted out and likened directly to Adolf Hitler because of Kelly? We talked about that this week too. I mean,
there's early polling.
It's a last desperate attempt.
Early polling indicating that her calling Trump a Nazi is actually increasing his Jewish support. Just to show you how big this is backfiring, it's increasing his Jewish support, because they are insulted that she would dare accuse the 45th president of the United States, right? He's already been president for 4 years, right? According to Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, I guess Donald Trump forgot to do his Nazi stuff for 4 years, right? Kind of like the woman that allegedly Trump groped, forgot about it for 30 years and just conveniently remembered 2 weeks before the election, right? I mean, like, it's funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Magical. Just happens.
Just happens. So he's actually gaining Jewish support. And independents are so tired of this trope. They're so tired of this talking point that Donald Trump is a literal Hitler. He has a Jewish daughter. He has Jewish grandchildren. He's about to welcome into the world an Arab grandchild, right? He prayed at the Wailing Wall. He got Israel's embassy moved to Jerusalem.
The Abraham Accords?
Abraham Accords.
Have we forgotten all of this?
To say like, oh, he's a Nazi, it's just insane. It's just absolutely insane. But that's all these people have. And the reason they're doing this, Josh, is because the map for Democrats is shrinking and the map for Trump is expanding.
It must be terrifying.
Out today, Virginia poll, Donald Trump down 1. Margin of error 3.6. So he could be down 4.6. He could be down 4.6 points, or he could be up 2.6 points. Anywhere in that range, right?
Wow. That's
down
big.
by 1 in Virginia.
Still way too close.
New Hampshire poll came out from Quinnipiac, 7 News. Emerson College. Says Kamala Harris up 3 in New Hampshire. But there is a problem with this poll. Let me see if I can pull it up. There's a problem with this poll in that it is, in my opinion, and the opinion of some other people, it is inaccurately weighted.
Interesting.
The New Hampshire electorate is Republican. It's like R plus, I want to say it's like R plus 9, R plus 10.
Really?
But there are Republicans who then vote for Democrats. So it never ends up, the final vote is very rarely R+10. They do have a Republican governor, so it does happen. They have had Republican senators in the past. But the electorate is heavy R, right? R plus, I'd say around R+10, plus or minus a couple. In 2020, exit polling put the vote in New Hampshire at R+8. This poll from Emerson says it's R+2. So they are basically just cooking these books. There's no reason to believe R+2.
Yeah,
because the voter registration data tells us there's many more Republicans than Democrats. New registered Republicans outnumber new registered Democrats. And exit polling shows that even in years where Democrats win, it's still R+8.
Wow. I was wondering if some of these polls were going to start coming out to try to influence the walk-up.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen that before as we go. And in Colorado, Night News had it. I'm going to look for it in a second here, but they had a tweet up that said Democrats with slight lead.
Yeah.
At the polls right now. Right. And they didn't show anything. They just kind of make this blanket statement of slight lead. Right. With exit polls. But I don't know if I believe it. And even if so, Colorado's so blue, right? They should be like way ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, they should be way ahead. And I think that their internal polls, even with Colorado, you're talking about one of the bluest states in the country, they're afraid, right? They can only make claims of slight leads.
Yeah.
But they're still doing it to try to create that walk-up influence. And like, could this thing be much closer than we realize? Or is there blowout territory here? I mean, if he pulls in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, he does get Virginia.
Yeah.
Georgia's on the map, right? He gets Florida, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a win.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a win.
So if you take this saying Trump's down 3 and you say, okay, this pollster ran with R+2, it should be R+8. But also factor in that doesn't necessarily mean that Trump's going to get 6 points more because there are going to be Republicans who vote Democrat, right?
Yeah.
That still adjusts this to be about Trump +1.
Yeah.
If they had weighted this R+8, Trump is winning in this poll.
Yeah, but it'd be like a +5 margin.
Yeah.
That'd be outside the error, right? At that point, and you're like,
he'd probably be
crap.
+1, +2 because he won't get all 6 points.
Sure.
But he'll get most of them. So you have Virginia, you have New Hampshire. We are hearing rumblings in Minnesota. They are sending the conservatives for Trump, those assholes. They have all been going to Minnesota.
I've been in Minnesota recently, just this year, twice. And when I was walking through the Mall of America, the kiosks there in the past had always had like Democrat stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There were Trump flags in the hall kiosks and in stores.
Yeah.
And that started to kind of like, I think it shakes the Democrats in Minnesota, right? I mean, that could you imagine Minnesota going red for Trump? I mean, that would be the biggest kick in the, you know what? Like, not for the Dems, right?
How funny would that be? Like, objectively, if she picks Walz because she doesn't want to piss off the Arabs by picking Shapiro, a Jewish man, and she loses Pennsylvania because of it, and then she loses Minnesota because of it, because Minnesota hates Walz, and she still loses Michigan because the Arabs aren't voting for her anyway. Right?
Wow.
If that's how it goes, which it looks like that's how it's going to go, it will go down as one of the biggest blunders ever in picking a VP. The books that were written saying, oh, who you pick as VP doesn't matter, will all have to be rewritten because it looks like she made the biggest mistake of her life, of American political history. I want to go through a little bit of Nevada. Nevada is interesting because Nevada gives us good data in terms of turnout, of who's casting ballots, what registered party they are, and we also get to see their propensity, how frequently they vote. So if you are 3, you always vote. If you're a 1 to 2, you vote on and off. If you're a 0, low propensity, no propensity, barely ever vote. So let's put up on the screen. Here we go.
Some numbers here, huh?
So we'll get to the Clark County propensities. But here on the left, you can see turnout raw for counties. Republicans are now outnumbering Democrats. 195,000 ballots turned in-person votes compared to 173,000. Democrats with 121,000 unaffiliated independents, right? That's just the raw. You look at percentages. In terms of percentages, 34% of registered Republicans have already voted. 29% of registered Democrats have already voted. 15% of independents have voted. Right? And you see how many voters
turnout already for that for the unaffiliated. Wow.
Democrats have fewer than 20,000 extra registered voters than Republicans, so they don't have a big lead. It's really going to come down to how independents swing and how many Republicans turn out, right? So they show us the propensity numbers, and these are the propensity numbers for voter frequency in Clark County. So remember, 0 means low to no propensity. 1 to 2 is like every other election. 3 is they vote every election, right? So you can see here that Republicans have turned out a bunch of 0 propensity, pretty much as many 0 propensity voters as Democrats have, right? While also turning out as many 1 and 2s as Democrats and a little bit fewer of the 3s. But that's okay because the 3s are election day voters. Republicans, if you are a 3, you vote on election day. That's just how it usually is. Yeah. For Democrats, most 3s vote by mail. So that's where we're at here. Are the Republicans cannibalizing their day of vote? It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like they are really cannibalizing it that much because they're getting a ton of these 0 and 1 and 2 propensity voters as well. Right?
Yeah, that independence number is the one that's really gonna, and it's the people that show up for the independents. Keep going.
Yeah, that's what it's ultimately going to come down to, right? Yeah. Because the polls basically show as many Republicans will vote for Democrats as Democrats will vote for Republicans, so they cancel each other out. It comes down to independents, and there are bad polls, in my opinion, that show Kamala Harris running away with independents. There are other polls that show Donald Trump winning independents.
With that low turnout, it's half of both parties, which means that they're only half as likely to vote, right? Even in those 3s, there's just not good turnout with them right now. I wonder how many independents stay home. That's the thing is, which independents are independents going to vote, or are they just going to sit this one out?
That's the question. You look here at low propensity independents. 6% of low propensity independents have voted in Clark County. That's Las Vegas, right? Compared to Republicans, 16% of low propensity Republicans. So these are new voters, right?
Yeah. They're getting the vote out, man. That's a scary number.
These are new voters, new registered voters. I would guess most of them are new voters. You don't just sit on the voter rolls if you never vote, right?
Yeah.
You might be able to make it a couple of election cycles. Eventually you get tossed. So Republicans are turning out 16%, 16.5% of their 0 voters compared to 11.9% Democrats, 6.56% independents. But even the 3s, we always vote independents, they are only at 36.5% turnout compared to 45.5% Republican. So across the board, Republicans are turning out more of their voters as a percentage than Democrats or independents, no matter what propensity you're talking about.
Man, this machine that's running for Republicans right now is not a machine that was crafted like the Democrat machine. This is people who just want America great again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is wild, right? This is real grassroots movement stuff versus.
Yeah. So what a lot of people worry about is that Republicans are going to cannibalize their election day vote, that they're going to run up all of these votes early, and there's not going to be any Republicans left to vote on election day. Now, I can understand why that would be bad if it creates the illusion of we're winning and then there's no Republicans left to vote on election day and all the other Democrats come and vote, then you lose. But it's always better to bank a ballot than it is to wait and hope that ballot comes later.
Yeah. Yeah.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
You bet. It's a called vote. It's a vote.
A ballot now, a ballot today, is worth one. Saying we'll get that ballot later is actually worth less than one.
Yeah.
Because even for these threes, these we always vote. Their car breaks down, kid gets sick.
Yeah.
Struck by lightning. Like crazy things can happen. Right?
Like the weirdest things happen.
Polling station shuts down. Run out of paper.
Yeah.
Right. Power outages.
The
things
plumbing
can happen.
breaks.
Things can happen. So it's always better to bank the vote now.
Yeah.
Always better. And if you don't trust mail-in ballot, go vote in person. I tried to vote in person today. There was a line around the building. It's like, oh, I was an hour before the podcast. So I'll try Monday. It's always better to bank the vote now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you like voting on election day, go do it. That's fine, right? But if you are anything less than a 3 on this propensity, if you maybe miss one, maybe miss 2, if you can even imagine a world where you don't vote because XYZ happens to you, then the only solution is to vote early. You don't have to vote by mail. You can vote in person in states that allow it. Lots of states that have mail-in voting, you can get a ballot there, fill it out, and just hand it right to them, put it right into the box without putting it in the mail. So, I think that's the difference here. And we have people that we know who have for a long time told people, don't vote early. Don't vote early. And the problem with that is you can't trust 0, 1, or 2 propensity voters to show up on election day.
No.
And if the Democrats are banking theirs, it's suicide to say we're deliberately not going to bank ours. Yeah. So what you saw this year with Republicans is really a two-pronged approach. We're going to register as many new voters as possible. Shout out to Scott Pressler, doing a great job of that. Shout out to Charlie Kirk, Turning Point Action, doing a great job of that. Register them, and then we're going to harvest the shit out of these votes, right? Where you're allowed to do it, we're going to harvest. We're going to say, hey, you need to ride.
The game.
Hey, you need to ride. Hey, you turn that ballot in. Not going to knock on the doors of the people we know are going to vote. We're not going to knock on the GOP chairman's door, right? You don't need to do that. You don't need to knock on the door of people who vote every election, who volunteer for the Republican Party, who are door knockers themselves. Don't waste your time. Don't even necessarily waste your time on the independents trying to change hearts and minds. Focus on the registered Republicans who are unlikely or less likely to vote themselves, and do everything in your power to help them bank that vote now.
Yeah. Because that's what you have to do. Because there are people that just get lazy that day. There will be people that just get lazy that day and they'll say, F it. I'm not going to go vote. It'll be fine anyway. That'll happen. Yeah, I like the idea of banking the vote. They started this in 2020, like harvesting those ballots.
Yeah.
So if they have a problem with the way it runs on the left, screw them. They started this game.
So here, ballots by party registration for North Carolina. Can you read that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So by mail, 134,000 ballots so far. Early in person, 2.1 million.
Whoa.
Right now, what you have for early in person plus mail is Republicans handing in 17,000 more ballots than Democrats.
Damn.
Now, I haven't seen the propensity from this. A lot of this probably has to do with the hurricane, especially in areas where they were affected by that. But if you're winning the early vote, you're winning, right?
Yeah.
Don't let it get into your mind, well, what if we don't have enough voters on election day? Most of the Democrats are going to vote early. So if you end early voting ahead or tied or even slightly behind, right? You're in a great position to win this thing on election day.
There's places in Nevada where people are claiming that the voting line is 2,000 people deep. All the places that were hit by the hurricane, people have been voting and voting and voting and voting.
North Carolina.
Because of the health that they're getting. Is this a turnout election because Kamala is so bad, Republican, or because Republicans have done a good job of recruiting, or because Donald Trump will make America great again? Those are the three big questions in my head. Is Kamala that bad that everybody's willing to make sure she doesn't get voted in?
Yeah.
Is Donald Trump that good? Right? Oh, I'm scared, man. Every time I see this stuff and these numbers, I'm like, we just got to keep getting people out there. We can't have Kamala Harris become president of the United States.
Here is Pennsylvania, the all-important Pennsylvania. Now, this is going to scare you because, like, oh my God, look at the blue vote. Oh my goodness. Democrats have banked 700,000 ballots versus 360,000 Republican ballots. Well, here's the deal, right? And you see, in terms of other independents, negligible. Not negligible. This will still matter, but even if they were even if they were all Democrats, it's still a good position to be in as a Republican, because when you look at what that looked like in 2020, in 2020, Democrats had 3.4 million votes. Many of them, more than 1 million, were banked early, right? Republicans had 3.3 million votes, lost by 80,000 some odd votes, right? I'm pretty sure Scott Pressler has himself and his organization registered enough new voters to cover that spread, right?
Yeah.
But Democrats aren't banking enough. Republicans, low propensity Republicans, are voting early in enough numbers that the Democrats are not going to be able to win this thing with a firewall. It's what they call a firewall of 500,000 votes. Yeah. They're not going to be able to win this thing because there are many more Republicans than 360,000, right? Remember, there are 3.3 million registered Republican votes. 3.3 million.
Yeah.
So right now, take away the new registration, there's still 3 million other Republicans. The question is, will the Democrats vote on election day when the only way they've been able to run up the score in past elections was by running up the score early?
Yeah.
I don't know. And what the data is showing is you can still request ballots. You're still allowed to request ballots in Pennsylvania up until, I want to say, a couple days from now. Every day I've looked at it, there have been more Republicans requesting mail-in ballots. So the Democrats aren't even like trying to grow the number. The number's not growing, right? Right now, Democrats have received 60% of the Democrat ballots that are out there.
Good Lord.
Republicans,
only 30%.
30%.
Yeah. Still makes me nervous, but when election day does come, I see what you mean, because they'll that big firewall, that big lead that's early on isn't there. That also means that Republicans have to come out that day and vote. So are they waiting to do that? Are they going to show up as an army in Pennsylvania and send a message?
That already happens. I see if I can find the breakdown.
And do they not trust their mail-in ballots? Because these sound like people who want to go out and make a statement with their vote. They want to be seen. They want to go and do it, right? That a certain way of living in Pennsylvania, right? You get Philly, you get Pittsburgh. We started America and we want to be independent spirits. So I think they go out there and they've got to show up as armies.
Republicans like voting on election day. I like voting on election day. I just like it, right? I might vote early this year in person just to get that out of my mind for election day, right? Just vote early. But Republicans like to vote early. Democrats vote by mail, not because they're all sick, not because they're all traveling, because they have traditionally harvested the ballots of people who, if they weren't harvested, probably wouldn't have voted. Democrats have always wanted to lower the barrier to entry, which in itself isn't that bad of a thing, right? We're not talking about how you need to pull out a credit card to vote or anything like that, but we all want a country where people who vote actually know what they're voting for, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to. You could go in and vote blue up and down the ticket, whatever. That's fine. But in a democracy, a republic that works, you'd have informed voters. The Democrat Party banks all these votes by doing the opposite, right? They say that we want to inform voters, but when they're going through apartment buildings and projects and things like that, harvesting these ballots, they're not trying to educate people on civics. They're not trying to educate people why they should vote a certain way. They're just trying to bank the ballots. Just harvesting the ballots.
Yeah, just harvesting the
right?
ballot.
So if Democrats don't build up enough of a firewall, you can't count on low propensity voters to vote on election day. That's why they are low propensity voters. They don't always vote. So if you don't bank them, you can't count on them. Now, maybe they all turn out. Maybe they do. Maybe the history of them barely ever voting changes. I wouldn't expect it to, but maybe, right?
Yeah.
But what it looks like with Republicans is they are banking those low propensity votes. They're banking those new votes now and expecting that we're still going to get those 3 million plus Republicans on election day. And if the Democrats don't run up the score enough early, they just won't have enough on election day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just about banking the vote. It's a great strategy. I hope it starts winning, because I see some of these early voting results. Everybody's got their own things out there. Some guys making the claim that where was it at? Roger Christian, that Wisconsin Republicans up 46.1%.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know as much about that, because my understanding is that the Rust Belt doesn't always give you all the data. But what they do is they look at Republican counties and say, wow, these Republican counties where like 70% of the population is Republican have huge turnout. And they're extrapolating from that, right? So if the Republican counties are turning out massively, they can expect that it's really good. Those aren't all conservatives for Harris, right?
Sure. I don't know. There's like, so what do we do? I know we're always hoping for the Trump win. We're telling people to get out there, vote. You need to do it. But what does the first 90 days of a Harris presidency look like?
Not even going to look at it. Not even going to look at it. It's terrible. It's hell. She doesn't even know what it's going to look like, because she hasn't come up with the policy
for all. Tackles for all.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what that victory speech would sound like coming out of Kamala Harris?
Look at what
Let
this
that
guy,
sink in, y'all.
look what this guy who put out. This is very bullish. He's on Twitter putting out election modeling, and he's predicting that Democrats will be down about 500,000 votes. That's a little bullish. But if Republicans are up 500,000 votes over what they got last time, right, then that's a win by almost 15%.
Good Lord.
Right? So,
wow.
We'll have to see. But right now, that's a little bit more bullish than I am. I'm not predicting a 14% win for Trump. But
that's a ballsy statement.
Well, you look at the Democrats right now, they are behind. In 2020, they had already banked 1 million ballots.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. COVID, that whole thing hit. Yeah. I mean, they were all sending in the ballots. It was that, I mean, we covered in a different world, how many people were harvesting ballots in Minnesota at that time, man.
Yeah.
And it was just a monster of a machine.
And I don't think this is because the Democrats don't have a ground game. They still have a ground game.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't change, right?
It didn't change. What I think changed is when they walk into, let's say, the barbershop and say, hey, anyone got any ballots for us? And they look in there and everyone's wearing Trump hats. Mm-hmm. Right? You can't harvest. You can harvest from someone who's apathetic, who's like, I don't care. Sure, I'm a Democrat. Sure, take it.
Yeah.
When that person has taken the red pill and is Trump baby, and a Democrat harvester says, let me take your ballot, they will fight you to make sure you don't get to take their ballot. Right?
Yeah.
That is happening. That is happening. And MSNBC sent news reporters to Philadelphia and were shocked at how pro-Trump the African-American community was.
Yes.
They were shocked at it.
Yes. The hats
So
they
we'll
were
see.
wearing, the people on the streets, even the Bronx in New York. There's people in those bodegas and those places wearing Trump stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, people want America to return to something amazing. Right?
Yeah.
And that's really what they're voting for this time. Because the alternative is something we can't even begin to think about. I try to get Max to think about the first 90 days. He won't do it because it's a nightmare.
Because she doesn't even know. She doesn't even know, Josh.
It's a nightmare, though. It's a nightmare. It would be, it would just be a complete apocalypse. It'd be the Kamala apocalypse.
She doesn't even know. If you ask her what's your 90 days look like, she can't give you an answer.
No. She's like, I don't know. Someone else runs the country.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. So looking really good for Trump. Saying it every podcast from here until the election. It's not over till it's over, right?
Yeah.
Get out there and vote. Get your family members. If your family members fall under, in your mind, that 0, 1, or 2 propensity that they don't vote every year, and they're Republicans, get them to the polls.
Yeah.
If you got to get them there early in person, do early in person. If they're traveling and they might not be able to do it on election day, get them a mail ballot while you still can. Bank those votes, right? Bank the votes, because one bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. A ballot counted today is worth 1. A ballot you hope comes later is less than 1 because of the possibility that it doesn't come in.
Yeah. I think there's going to be, and I'm going to predict a fairly low turnout with independents. I think there's no excitement for them there because they're independents. I mean, they're like 90s kids, right? They have no emotion. They're always meh, right? So I bet you they don't show up, which means that it turns into a turnout game for both sides.
Yeah.
And if Republicans are winning the turnout game, it could be that 15% lead, right? I mean, that could be in some states
the polls,
a pretty big number.
The polls I'm seeing are that the undecideds are not bought on Kamala Harris, that her Trump is Hitler closing argument isn't winning, that's not why they are going to vote. You're not, anyone who already believes that, we said this before, already believes that, right? You're not going to reach someone who's been in a coma for 8 years and hasn't heard the Donald Trump is Hitler rhetoric, right? You probably count those people on one hand, though. There are a lot of dumb people, so maybe, or just tuned out people who don't pay attention to this stuff. For example, in Virginia, organizations on the ground in Virginia are saying that the Biden-Youngkin voters, the people who voted for Joe Biden for president, but Youngkin, the Republican, for governor, are swinging for Trump. That's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because if Virginia has a Republican governor, if Virginia is going to swing to Trump, you need the people who elected the Republican governor to vote for Donald Trump. It's not a hard math, right? If all the people who voted for the Republican governor vote for the Republican presidential candidate, Trump wins.
And this is all happening with the worst. They don't not have a ground game with Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, right? But they've had to put something out there that has just been so horrendous that it has turned people on her, right? Like, this is to be the biggest political blunder ever, whoever ran this campaign.
We're hearing a lot. I'm hearing secondhand, so I don't know anyone in Kamala Harris's, but I'm talking to people who know people in her or in her team. So take it with a grain of salt. Sure. But they're saying that it's basically chaos. That it's basically the place is on fire. People are quitting, preparing to resign.
Wow.
People are begging her to stop going after Trump.
Yeah.
Telling her that negative advertising only works when you've branded yourself positively.
Yeah.
She's not listening. I've heard other rumors that she's boozing. I've seen some clips that make it look like she is.
Yeah.
She's
looked rough a couple times out there. I felt bad for her.
Yeah. Apparently, she's mad at her husband because his scandals are coming back in. Remember, we heard after Donald Trump did the Al Smith dinner that she stopped watching when Donald Trump joked about her husband keep him away from the nannies. There's trouble in paradise. The joy never existed. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
The joy never existed. What you had in July, August was fleeting excitement from an electorate who was so down in the dumps at the idea that they had to vote for Joe Biden, a human vegetable. The prospect of being able to vote for anyone else was uplifting. But then they realized that Kamala Harris is actually worse than Joe Biden.
And we, selected, not elected. There's just no excitement for the voter on this one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about Kamala? Well, I kind of hated her guts back in 2016 and kind of hated her in 2020.
I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how I felt in 2016. I supported Trump from the moment he came down the escalator. I probably would have supported Cruz if Donald Trump didn't. As soon as he was like, "We're gonna burn it down," I was like, "Let's effing do it. Let's burn it down." Right? I was a volunteer surrogate. They don't even let you do that anymore. His campaign was so like running just however you want. I was doing radio hits in Colorado on behalf of the campaign just because I wanted to.
Right.
I caucused for him when the Colorado GOP stole it. Well, didn't steal it, but they laughed and they bragged about not letting Trump have their delegates and all the never Trumpers from Highlands Ranch. I literally fought them, like not with hands, not like our old boss, but like vigorously in person, online, debating them to get people to see the error of their ways, right? And so when the election returns came in on 2016, and I was in the GOP war room at the hotel in where was that? That was in Denver. I was in the VIP war room looking at returns, and there was jubilation because what we all felt was we did it. We started at the beginning and we made it. We started at the bottom. Now we're here. Right?
Yeah.
You can't say that as a Kamala Harris supporter.
No.
You can't say I was with her through the primaries. You can't say I fought tooth and nail for her to win the nomination. You can't say I volunteered from the early days making calls. You can't say that. You just can't. No. There's no feeling of you were along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
The party elites forced her on the Democrat Party without any competition, and said, this is your only option. Vote or don't vote. And you can't not vote because Donald Trump is Hitler. That's not
democracy.
That doesn't rile people up. That doesn't get people excited. I would have crawled over broken glass to vote for Donald Trump in 2016. Would have crawled over broken glass.
I bet you people don't get out of their chair to vote for Kamala Harris. And that's going to be the prediction on the independent. There's just no excitement. There was never a ground swell of excitement for her, right? There's none of that camaraderie or that idea that I'm, like you said, fighting the fight.
That is why they are so dependent on mail-in ballots.
Right.
Republicans will crawl over broken glass to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Democrats, many Democrats, don't even want to leave their house. Don't even want to get up off the couch. Don't want to get in the car, and definitely don't want to wait in line for an hour to vote.
Nope.
So they have to bank those votes because they're not that interested. They don't care that much. One vote is still one vote. Votes are equal, no matter how much you care, right?
Yep.
But what it looks like right now is they are not succeeding in getting enough of the I don't really care vote in order to win these states.
Right. Yeah. And I think the Republicans are getting enough of the I do care vote. Because people do care. Like they genuinely care.
Yes.
Right. And if we look at this from a high level, right, Trump from the beginning has come out looking presidential and has been civil since the start of this campaign. He was shot at. He shed blood. Like, the look of him has gone from being this madman billionaire to a person who genuinely loves his country, who loves America and loves American people. That is what we've gotten as far as a narrative. What have we gotten from 10,000 feet for Kamala Harris?
Yeah. Nice.
She's like, throw one at me. She's
nothing.
She's the first woman vice president.
Yeah.
There's one. There,
sure.
I got one.
Yeah. If you want to say vote for her because of her genitalia, vote for her because of her melanin in her skin, I guess that's the argument to make, right? But she's no Barack Obama.
No,
she's
he was
no
at least
Barack Obama.
charismatic. The man could speak to a group and they'd believe him. Silver-tongued bastard. She's got nothing. I mean, again, there's just nothing to look on. There's nothing to see here. Vote for us anyway.
It is funny. She's not doing Joe Rogan. Donald Trump is doing Joe Rogan. May have already finished. Plane did come from Las Vegas to Austin. So he's there doing it. She is in Houston tonight. Rallying. She wants to put abortion back on the talking points, right? So by coming to Texas, state with pro-life laws, she's going to try and make abortion, Roe versus Wade, all that back in the discussion. So which is why it's brilliant for Trump to go on Rogan, because even if she gets that for a day or two, Trump on Rogan's going to blow that wide open. But her campaign has said that she isn't able to do Rogan because of scheduling conflicts when she is already in Texas.
Bullshit. She can't handle it. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it the same day, but she could pull that off the next day. She could do 3 hours with Rogan the next day.
Donald Trump flew from Vegas here to do that interview. She's already here in Texas, albeit one city over, but she's already here. The narrative that I just can't swing it, it's horseshit. But she could never do it. She could never do it. Just like she can't answer Anderson Cooper's questions
on CNN.
Yeah, on CNN.
Right, on CNN.
She could never do long form Rogan. She could never do it. She's not that interesting of a person.
No. What are they going to start with? So what was it like when you and Montel were dating? Right? What was that like back in the 90s? Like, how far would Rogan want to take that back?
That's the question.
There'd be questions that she'd be like, "Whoa,
yeah,
oh, did you sleep with that DA dude?"
Oh no, she'd be looking for the parachute. What cord do I pull to rip me out of the seat? She could never do it. She could never do it. Even if he was like pulling punches, she could never do it because she isn't interesting. Rogan's interviews are always good because even if they're not like the most famous person on there, they're still interesting. They're an expert in something, whether it be they're one of the best stand-up comics in the world. He brings on archaeologists, scientists, physicists. I watched one guy talk for like 2 or 3 hours about mushrooms. That was his whole life, mushrooms. And it got weird because he said he couldn't answer certain questions because the mushroom industrial complex would kill him. Like, that's how deep it went. They're like, I can't tell you that. They'll kill me if I tell you that about mushrooms. Which is crazy.
I want to listen now.
I know. Now I want to know. Now I want to know. But that's the kind of interviews he does. Kamala Harris would never survive. She's just not that interesting.
It would be one of those preferred bloodbaths, man. Like she would be slashed apart in the first couple of questions. It would be the greatest meltdown ever, and that's why the campaign won't have her do that. But they will have her bring abortion back to a fairly red state. I don't know how the abortion issue there shakes out, right? But that's the most she can come to Texas with, because she can't come to Texas with the economy, right? And what happens if Rogan asks her a question about the economy? You going to fix it now? What about those 3 years prior?
Yeah,
be a meltdown, right? What about all those people coming over the border?
Answer that simple question.
Yeah. And Trump's probably like, well, I'm a billionaire.
Yeah.
You make energy easy for everybody. It's a simple answer.
Yeah.
You make energy cheap.
Yep.
So we all get our stuff cheaply. Then you manufacture at home. What else do you need to know?
Yeah. And if foreign companies, foreign countries try and flood the market with food, energy, or manufactured goods to undercut the cost and price of American produced food, energy, and goods, then you put tariffs on them to protect the workers here in the United States from being swindles. No, it's an easy calculus. Easy calculus. So we'll have to see when Joe Rogan comes out. That's going to be must watch. I don't think they're going to release it today. I would guess they won't release it today. I don't know if they're going to want to release it on a Saturday.
Monday then?
Monday would be the best, probably. Give them a week to edit it.
Well, we're only X amount of days until the election.
I know.
So people might tune in no matter, like, he may want to drop it because he knows I would want all those watches. Like, if I was them,
Monday will be 8 days. Monday will be 8 days, 7 days left of campaigning, because campaigns typically don't campaign on election day. Their rallies might run into election day, but they typically take that off.
I tell them ASAP. Like, if I was on that committee, I'd be like, we just got to get it out. Let's just go.
Well, you want the news cycle. You want to hit the news cycle. Releasing it on a Friday afternoon is where you release news you don't want people to see, right? That's the Friday afternoon news dump. Saturday, you're competing with college football and the World Series. Sunday, you're competing with the NFL. Like, Kamala Harris is having a rally in the middle of the World Series day. Like, good luck, Kamala Harris. The two most popular baseball teams in the world are playing. Yankees, Dodgers, and Kamala's going to compete. Okay, Kamala, go for it.
Just a joke. It's all a joke at this point, man. So, but still, get out there, go vote, gang. I mean, if you haven't gotten your friends to get out there, now is the time to make sure that they do.
Time to make sure that they do.
And listen, grandma's out there.
Gotta be vigilant. Gotta be vigilant for the funny business. Yeah. Their huge press conference today in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, of an organization. Scott Presler says it's not his organization, who tried to dump in 2,500 registrations at the deadline, but they were dated back in June. And they did a quick look, and at least 60% of them were fraudulent. And now they found 5 other counties that this organization was dumping registrations in.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Well, you're not going to commit 2,000 felonies in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and not try to run up the score in Philadelphia, where you can make those voters look real, right?
I know. Like, yeah, nobody will care in Philly. Like, all right, you got 2,000 people.
You can't make 2,000 people just appear in farmland, right? Like, you can't do that, right? But in New York, in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, you could. You can hide that number. So, of course, they did it elsewhere. Huge investigation now. I also saw that there were 12 fraudulent ballots cast in Colorado, in Mesa County. Mm-hmm. And they said 3 were accidentally counted, and there's nothing they can do about it. They're just going to be counted. And they're sending those voters ballots too, since their vote had been stolen. So the thief gets to count. And if the people who had their ballots stolen actually are going to vote for the same thing as the thief,
right,
then that means they essentially get 2 votes.
Jenna Griswold, Colorado Secretary of State.
Yeah.
At its finest. That doesn't surprise me. When I read it, actually I saw it, I went numb, actually. I was like, they've done it before. And that's a sad place for me to be, because it's like, here we are. We see it. And there's nothing we can do about it. That's the other piece, right? There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. I don't think it's lost on anyone that this voter fraud scheme is in Mesa County, the same county where Tina Peters used to be their clerk. Mm-hmm. And she was sentenced to prison under the auspices of there is no voter fraud. There is no reason to even look for voter fraud. And daring to copy the data off of election machines before they can be wiped is criminal behavior, because voter fraud isn't real. And now, no sooner has she been sentenced to prison and there's someone else doing her job, we're now told that at least 12 fraudulent ballots have been cast in the county where she would have otherwise been on the lookout for that stuff. It is not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence.
Yeah. And remember, that was her job, gang. She was simply doing her job, and she's got 9 years, the maximum sentence somebody could get for this. So I really want you guys to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
You have to start volunteering for being at these polling stations. You got to make sure they preserve the data. We have to go back to a paper ballot system with an ID.
Yeah.
You have to prove you're an American vote.
84% of Americans, latest polling, support voter ID.
Every other country in the world pretty much does it. That's the country.
Even
remember, Democrats don't want it.
Even dipping your finger in iodine is infinitely better than no voter ID.
You bet.
Sub-Saharan Africa, dip the finger in iodine. It'll last long enough that you can't
vote again. Yeah.
Even that is infinitely better. At least in Mesa County, where
so are they going to review her case then? Because if there was admission of fraudulent ballots, does she not have some sort of recourse? I mean, she'd be showing harm if that evidence could have been presented.
The stuff I'm seeing for her, it makes it even crazier, right? The narrative that the government had was that she unlawfully used someone else's badge to get someone into the building. But if anyone has ever worked in government or even in the private sector where you have badges, if you're bringing someone on a temporary basis, they don't always get a badge. You just swipe them in, right? So like they criminalize some of the most basic behavior of swiping someone in who isn't going to be there long term. It's a mess. But again, I don't think it's a coincidence that the county that Tina Peters was the clerk, where she's been in prison now for daring to protect against voter fraud, is now experiencing voter fraud. An election where we've been told voter fraud is impossible.
Damn.
I showed you this earlier. For all the audio listeners, if you are on audio, we want to make this as good for audio as possible. It is Kamala Harris photoshopped onto Princess Leia, crouching over, and instead of recording her message into R2D2, she is recording her message into what looks like a Dominion voting systems tabulator. And it says, "Help me, you're my only hope." It's a meme.
You made my Friday.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you made my Friday. Like I was getting real worried here about Kamala Harris winning, and then I saw this, and it all got better.
Listen,
it's scary.
Be vigilant. Be vigilant.
Yeah.
Right. What's the cost of liberty? Eternal vigilance.
Be vigilant. A little sign of the spike.
Yeah, you see that? That's actually really funny. That's really funny. Oh, they even put. Oh, that's funny. Of the spike in votes for blue. That's funny. Now, this is not a claim about Dominion. It's a meme, and it's funny. Yeah. Dominion's out there. Dominion's out there looking.
Oh yeah.
I think our old friends. Dominion's looking. So hopefully, anyone who's going to talk about this stuff, talk about memes, laugh, use the word allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. This is allegedly Kamala Harris. Allegedly.
If you're going to do that, you have to actually say where you heard it.
Yeah.
Say who's alleging.
And we have no firsthand knowledge. She's never gone to a machine like this asking for help. So
I have no reason to believe that Kamala Harris has ever participated in a space opera where she recorded an SOS message into a Dominion voting machine. No reason to believe that, but it's funny. It's funny. All right, well, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like it, subscribe, like, comment, share. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube. We're on X Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have the audio edition of the podcast, so subscribe to that. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, Audible, all great places. Subscribe. Set up to audio download. Listen on your commute. We try and make this as audio friendly as possible. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerly.
Remember, the fight to take back the country is not over yet. We got like 11 days.
I know.
The only way we win is if we all stand up and fight. What do we have to do, Josh?
Together.
See you guys next time. Have a good weekend.